Hello again everyone, Thomas here, and welcome back to Daily Shorts. Now, although it's been a while since I've been able to record a new episode, I've been doing a pretty good job of keeping up with the reading. And this week, I focused mostly on stories from Uncanny Magazine, because it's damn handy to read from magazine subs that just download themselves to your tablet every month. Also, a good handful of these are fantasy, dark fantasy, and/or horror, depending on your definitions, and at least 3 of them have just been announced as Nebula Award finalists. So, let's see what we have. In Sermonettes' Learning to See Dragons, a little girl escapes into her imagination to avoid facing family conflict and the impending death of her grandmother, and her imagination proves more fruitful than expected. Now, this story feels kind of like a sequence in search of a larger story, but it's neat the way the little girl does manage to achieve her desired goals. From the same issue of Uncanny, we have The Bone Plane by Karin Tidbeck, the Swedish author of Amatka. Now, this is an evocative story with a strong sense of place, in which a young woman with a disturbing secret impulsively joins a pilgrimage to a remote location said to absolve people of their sins. Now, it's incisive on character, but ends on a weak note. But I did like the casual inclusion of the title's location, a graveyard of fossils of creatures of titanic size, bigger than dinosaurs. It's a clever act of world building that adds an understated fantasy element that doesn't actually figure as central to the narrative. Much more satisfying is Fran Wild's quietly disturbing, clearly lettered in a mostly steady hand from the previous issue of Uncanny, number 18. It's a chilling, atmospheric piece of horror in which the narrator leads the reader on a tour of what used to be called a freak show, with the clear intent of showing those who consider freaks nothing more than objects to be poked and prodded and put on display, just what the pain of that feels like. It's deeply visceral, with some grisly imagery, and a memorable finale. I was sadly much less pleased with Catherine Valente's Down and Out in Relier, which by all rights I should have loved. A snarky reworking of Lovecraft. It's initially humorous, but very quickly becomes repetitive and tedious. It's a tale in which the disaffected young denizens of the Deep One's eternal city in the abyss have nothing to do all day but hang out and get high, mostly by tapping into the mundane thoughts of humans. The story has one funny idea informing its social satire. The younger generation of monsters are like millennials, resentful of the elder things for robbing them of opportunities for a successful future. Now, stylistically, Valente just hammers readers with non-stop, hyperkinetic wordplay that's designed to read as if William S. Burroughs decided to write a Cthulhu mythos story immediately after cooking up. Which, when I say it like that, kind of makes it sound a lot better than it actually reads. Though I have to wonder why no one has ever thought of turning Fatagan into a profanity before now. A little of this kind of writing goes a very long way, and this novelette just goes on forever. And besides, if you're not a hardcore Lovecraft fan, won't make a lick of sense. Happily, I loved Fandom for Robots, an absolutely delightful little celebration of fanfic culture by Veena Jamin Prasad. Computron, the only sentient robot ever developed way back in the 1950s, is introduced to a popular anime series and then quickly discovers its fandom, ultimately teaching itself to write fanfic. It eventually collabs with another popular fanfic writer, and their stories become huge hits in the community. The funny part is no one, not even the collaborator, knows that Computron is an actual robot writing what are essentially the only own voices robot stories ever published. Now, online fan interactions, especially among shippers, are hilarious. And underneath it all is the quiet message that inclusivity can only benefit fan communities. Back to horror fiction, I checked out the first story in the January issue of Nightmare, A Head in a Box, or Implications of Consciousness After Decapitation, brings horror's capacity for sharp social satire to the forefront, in a story about the objectifying and commodifying nature of celebrity, particularly concerning women. An actress's head is preserved and kept alive after it's decapitated in a freak scooter accident, and ironically, the situation revives her flagging career. and presents her with all new endorsement and public appearance opportunities. And in case you're wondering, yes, the premise is subtweeting Gwyneth Paltrow in Seven. Finally, a chilling little short work from Rebecca Rowanhorse, whose debut novel Trail of Lightning arrives later this summer. Welcome to Your Authentic Indian Experience deals metaphorically with the displacement of indigenous peoples. Jesse is a Native American working as a tour guide for a company that provides virtual reality Vision Quest experiences. He meets a tourist calling himself White Wolf who claims to want something truly authentic and not the scripted experiences the tours usually provide. In no time, Jesse finds his entire life slowly being taken over and subsumed by White Wolf. The narrative has a Kafka quality. Jesse is a bit like Joseph K. from The Trial, finding his life utterly ripped away from him and powerless to understand why, let alone do anything about it. But the story also indicts Jesse for being part of a system that's turned his own culture into a commercialized novelty, nothing to do with authenticity at all. And the title suggests, rather darkly, that the authentic Indian experience is the self-defeating dead-end capitulation that Jesse has allowed his life to become. It's a subtle and powerful example of how speculative fiction can cut deep beneath the surface of real-world issues. And that's all I have time for this episode of Daily Shorts. I want to thank you all for joining me. Now, any of these stories that can be read online, well, I will link them below, so be sure to check the description. Otherwise, if you enjoyed watching, please leave a like, share the video far and wide with all your SFF reading friends, and above all, please subscribe. That is how the channel grows. You can also support the channel at my TeePublic store and at my Patreon, where recruits into Wink's Army get little perks like getting to see videos like these a day early, things like that. I want to thank those people for their additional support. I want to thank you guys for being amazing viewers. And until I see you next time with more reviews and another Daily Shorts, happy reading.